Tom mentioned a number of community disaster agencies that he is involved with. I'd like him to explain that to us a bit more.
Fairfax County is somewhat unique in that it has a representative at the county level coordinating interfaith activities, and in particular the emergency preparedness and response roles for the faith community. Most geographic organizations throughout the country, I'm sure, have volunteer organizations, some more, some less, that are preparing for disaster. And with very little research, perhaps a Google search on the net, you can connect to those organizations. One of the modules that we will prepare here is to try to get you networked into those organizations. And frequently they offer free or at minimal charge some excellent training. In Fairfax, several people have mentioned the Community Emergency Response Team training put on by the Fire and Rescue Academy. It is excellent, excellent training, hands-on, full service presentation by the fire and rescue people. You can do ride-alongs with the local police department. Fairfax County Police also provide a Citizens Police Academy. In Northern Virginia, there is a very active VOAD, volunteer organizations active in disasters, which include nonprofit organizations, American Red Cross and others. Many opportunities to participate, get involved with the Medical Reserve Corps. Even Neighborhood Watch in the local communities is involved in preparation and response. So pick out something that you might be interested in, check it out, get in there, volunteer, and you can have a real blast sometimes just getting the training with some of these organizations, develop some lifelong experiences and friendships as you go along the way.
Nelson, you mentioned that your church is involved in developing a plan, a preparedness plan. It's our hope that each one of our congregations would have a plan in place. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Yes. The church that I'm a member of, we have developed an emergency planning. And what is interesting, when you start planning, you realize you really don't know anything. We had, for instance, we did not know where the fire alarms were. So
in the church?
Yes,
Whoops.
yes, in the church. So once we start doing our planning, then we were able to locate all the fire alarms, but then we realized we needed an exit plan. How would you exit the church? So as we sat down, went piece by piece, we developed an exit plan, who to actually contact. Then we were saying, what would you do if an emergency occurred during church service? So we realized we needed to train the ushers. So we had a training session for the ushers. Then we found out we needed to have CPR training, first aid training. So this is an ongoing process.
Liz, I know you mentioned our own World Relief, LCMS World Relief and Human Care. What about other agencies such as Red Cross?
Almost every community has a Red Cross in it. And Red Cross becomes a wonderful resource for training. They provide wonderful, wonderful training that people can take advantage of. And in many areas, the Red Cross training that is associated with disaster training, there is no cost for, because they're so anxious to have people who are trained in those areas. But another way that churches can become involved through the Red Cross is to have someone come to their church and do an assessment to find out what your church might be able to do in terms of providing some shelter in the event of any kind of an emergency. And this will vary from location to location, but many of our churches in the district have followed through with this and are now on the Red Cross list to provide that shelter in the event of an emergency. And there are various levels of sheltering that you can do, depending on the size of your facility and what your facility has to offer. The training, in many cases, they will actually come in and train your members then if you are going to be a shelter. A lot of information is also available on websites through FEMA. You can get excellent, excellent training by taking courses online with FEMA that will help with any of your credentialing or certification in order to be able to help. And this is an area too that we continue to work on within our community so that the people who are responding are trained to do that and can provide appropriate care at that time. So as Tom mentioned, and as Nelson mentioned, it is just so important for you as a congregation to be involved in your community so that in the event of an emergency, you will be working together with other agencies to provide the care. But as a Christian church, you have that unique opportunity of responding with the love of Christ to provide that hope and that love and that care that so many people are looking for at that time.
I have one last question to ask or request. Would you mind sharing one lesson that you've learned or one piece of advice that you would hand off to another congregation?
Yes, one lesson. When I went on site on the Gulf Coast to see the devastation of Katrina, these people left with only the clothes on their back. And the lesson learned is to be prepared. And the first thing is have an emergency kit with you. So if you're only given a 30-second notice, what would you take with you? And the planning starts before the actual event occurs.
And for me, it's a little bit more simple, and it goes back to the connection between preparedness and the church. And I will quote from Matthew 25:40. What you do for the least of these, you do for me. What we do in disasters reflects. It reflects Christ's image through us, through our actions. It's not the pastor's responsibility. The pastor can motivate and encourage and support, but every individual has the responsibility to reflect Christ in their action to those in need. What you do for the least of these, you do for me.
When you talk to people who have served on a disaster site, you come away hearing from them, what I came back with was much greater than what I gave. When I was down in the Gulf area for a week, I spent a lot of time visiting families who had lost their homes. What I found at that time is I just needed to listen. So when it comes to providing care for these people, often it is just your presence, just being there, just being that person who cares about them and wants to hear their story. That is what becomes so, so important to them. So in spite of all the training that we can get, which is so important so we know how to respond and in what way to respond, when it comes to the human care and the Christ compassion aspect of it, we just need to be representatives of Christ in terms of just being there, being his arms to give hugs, being his ears to listen, being his eyes just to open up our eyes to what the needs are. And just to open up yourself to the possibilities of serving others in even very small ways. We've mentioned a number of areas already, but another area that hasn't been mentioned is many of the areas have medical reserve corps. And there are often opportunities to be involved in how the dispense of medication happens. And so again, find opportunities and be the hands and the heart and the ears of Christ at those times when people are in need.
I want to thank you for your comments, and I want to encourage you to look at the 6 modules in disaster preparedness for your congregation. By working your way through these modules, you will be better prepared to know the needs of your own congregational community, to access the services of the larger community, and to be the calming presence of Christ in the midst of chaos. Please take time to work your way through. If you have any questions, you can reach us at www.se.lcms.org. Thank you, and God bless you.